Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris. This is going to be a 2 to 3 hour show all about comic books. We're going to talk about the latest comic book news of the week. We're going to take a look at some of the comics and manga that came out this week. Some really interesting stuff that we'll talk about today. Royals, one of my favorite books right now. Very interesting issue of Batman, Fraction and Jimenez. Finally, the English release of Billy Bat by Naoki Urasawa, one of his epics. So a lot of stuff there to talk about. Show some comics that I picked up that weren't new as well. We'll do some drawing towards the end as a cool down. We'll talk about media and stuff. But it's great to see everybody. I'm seeing a great mix of a lot of friendly faces and new names. So trust me, folks, if you're watching this after it's live, all these folks in the chat room add to the humor and the energy. I appreciate them being here. Let me adjust that slightly. Sorry, one of my lights was slightly in the frame. It was bothering me. And yeah, I definitely have the ego to go live during Game 3 of the Knicks versus Spurs. I have the ego to think that we will still have a healthy audience tonight. But with all of that said, why don't we cut all that boring chit-chat preamble stuff and get right into the news?
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Hi guys, this is April O'Neil from Channel 6 News, and I am here in beautiful New York City.
All right, there's our ticker so that you can see what kind of topics are coming up tonight, get a sense of where we are in the show. And with that said, I forgot to bring up that. You know what? I feel like that looks a little small. Can I expand the size of this silly thing? Maybe like that? Yeah, I want it to be legible for you folks. All right. Incredible thumbnail. Nailed it as always. And let's go start with this. Hey, it's Pride Month. So this only made all the sense in the world to talk about. Genderqueer. Oni has released a new edition of this acclaimed comic. It's a biography, an autobiography. So the story follows the author, Maya Kobabe, her journey. Or I said her. It would be Air is the pronoun that Air wants. Anyway. It follows Maya's journey from adolescence through adulthood, explaining Air's identity and sexuality, ultimately identifying outside the gender binary. And I'm old, so I have trouble sometimes with some of these pronouns, but I'm trying. I'm always trying. It's a pretty acclaimed book. A lot of people say it's just a fascinating, really intimate journey. It's a really good autobiography. The annotated edition is what they've just released, a new edition from Oni. And the annotated edition includes all sorts of commentary by the author. It includes additional insight into Air's life, as well as the making of the comic, what it means to be queer. And then there's tons of commentary by other comic book professionals that are all part of, LGBTQ, IA, etc. So if you like the book, it looks like this might be one you'd want to read again with all this annotation. I love bonus material in books. I have to admit, I haven't read this book yet, even though it's gotten a lot of acclaim, won a ton of awards. And I do want to get to it because if people are talking about this much, it must be an interesting story. It's now 280 pages. I sort of choked on my words there. 280 pages. Retails for $49.99. Rated for mature readers. You got to put that in there so that no parent-teacher groups are complaining. Look up here, and it's like there, but just taking the air part. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, I'm still getting used to some of that stuff, but I want to be respectful. It doesn't really affect my life at all to honor somebody's pronouns. So yeah, very cool. Hey, not quite 20 years, Jeannie. 10. I'll take 10 years that I've been doing this, but lovely to have my sister here. Thank you. Yeah, been doing it for 10 years now. I'm going to do an anniversary episode on my main channel next month. It's going to take a little while to put together, but 10 years I've been doing this. Thank you for that. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all the viewers. Let me wrap up this little piece of news first. Maya Kobabe will also be appearing, I wanted to note, as a special guest of Prism Comics QCon. That's Saturday, June 20th, so later this month in West Hollywood. So I put the details in there. If you're in the area, you might want to go get a signature or something like that. I think that would be really cool. And I just thought it made a lot of sense to start off the news of the week with that. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. And as long as I was talking about some Oni stuff, I'm going to roll into some more news from this publisher. It's almost like I put some thought into the order of topics. I'm so excited for this. I would say that I'm sort of an on and off fan of Archie. I like Archie. I have a lot of affection for the characters. I didn't read tons of it growing up. My sister read an okay amount of it, though, and I would read her books after she read them. And I often found it funny. I have to admit, the stuff I liked the most was around like 2015 or so, when they did New Riverdale, Mark Waid, Fiona Staples, a little more serious, a little more grounded. And then they started doing a lot of the different horror books with Archie. I kind of like what they do with that. So anyway, Oni and Archie released these 3 covers for the first 3 books that they're going to be doing under their new licensing agreement. So Oni will be releasing sort of the main Archie books. We've got Archie, of course. We've got a Sabrina book and Archie in Hell. That's the one I'm most excited for. But let me talk about what we've got. Yeah. You had a good amount of Archie and Betty and Veronica. And I'm glad you did, because it exposed me to something else other than just superhero stuff, I got to get to reading it, John. It looks good. Let's see. What else do we have? So here are the 3 books. We've got Archie, Sabrina, Archie in Hell, and they're going to launch consecutively this fall, September, October, November. And that coincides with the 85th anniversary of Archie himself debuting in Pep Comics back in 1941. 1941. Amazing. That's impressive, because you ask the average person who is Captain America or Superman or something, they kind of know those characters, right? But it's interesting that Archie, who is not as flashy as a superhero and has had TV and movies and stuff, but certainly not to the same level of characters like Batman, it's just really impressive to me that it can find ways to reinvent itself and stay relevant with a core audience. I was young, and I thought that it was like stuff that wasn't for me, but then I would read it, and a lot of it was funny and good. So anyway, Archie number 1. Here's the creative team: Ben H. Winters, art by Fabio Moon. I believe Fabio Moon is from Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, along with Nick Cagnetti. Sabrina is by Karina Bechko and illustrated by Kano. Very cool art. But then look at this. Archie in Hell, the horror comic, written by Patrick Horvath. That is the author-artist, if you don't know, of Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. Fantastic book. Art by Tyler Crook. Great artist. Had a great book, Out of Alcatraz, a few months ago. Pretty well known still for Harrow County. Great horror title. Tyler's art is really something special. He can work with all sorts of different media, but definitely does a lot with painting and watercolors and gouache. Yeah, and just really great lighting, great organic details, lots and lots of detail. So cool. Yeah, Kano is stepping out of the video games and right into your hearts with Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Don't ask me why that voice started to get a little Trumpian. That was not intentional. Oh yeah, that's a dude. I feel so naive. I totally missed that. But look at that. Yeah, Archie's number 41, a nice little nod to his debut year in Pep Comics. That's so cool. I think people will respond well to this. You know, they're getting some top tier talent on it, staying lean and focused. I don't know. I don't know too much about what like the plot is for any of these yet. I don't think anybody does. But boy, this Archie and Hell one of Patrick Horvath and Tyler Crook really gets me excited. I think that sounds so cool. We will continue with some more Archie news. Oh, yeah, good point. Yep, Ken Yeti, kind of all red Kirby, like kind of classic retro look, but definitely fits. So look at this. We are going to talk about a real-life pirate. A real-life pirate that there's not a whole lot that's absolutely for certain, but has a great legend behind him. And so Archie has announced that they're going to publish Vengeance Unchained, The Legend of Black Caesar. That's a comic book about the rise of the mythological West African pirate. And so there was a pirate called Caesar who served under the famous Blackbeard. What was his name? William Teach or Treach, something like that. I didn't look it up recently. Edward Teach, I think is his name. Anyway, Blackbeard. And there's a lot of legends there that, you know, he was a former king that became a slave and then became a successful pirate. And as to how much of that is true and how much is like, you know, mythology and legend, you know, he's kind of close to a Robin Hood character, except we definitely know he did exist. He was a real person. As to how much of his story is true, well, that's up to individuals to and historians to engage in. But it's certainly a really cool story. So Stephanie Williams is going to write this. Great pick. Obviously, she's become the first Black woman to be nominated for an Eisner this year. She's writing all sorts of great stuff. And art by a guy I've at least known online forever, Ray Anthony Height. Ray and I go back to like the old Pencil Jack and Wizard World forums, the message boards of like 99 or 2000. Great artist. He's friends with a bunch of people that I know and knew. But the concept was pitched by Shaquille O'Neal. He's not writing it, but he's involved in it. And I just think that that's kind of cool because it's definitely going to get it publicity. You know, I mean, people like Shaq and he's everywhere. Like, what doesn't Shaq endorse? You know, you've probably got something in your house that he does ads for, you know, like car insurance or light bulbs or bacon. I don't know, but he's probably endorsed something that's in your house. Oh, yeah. Ray Anthony Height's great. You know, he got a little bit of a manga flavor to him. Great stuff. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure that the movie you're talking about is based on his legend. So, yeah. Shaq is a businessman. You know why I like Shaq? There's a lot of reasons to like Shaq, but the one of the main reasons I like him, he loves koi. He has a massive, gorgeous koi pond. I've watched so many videos of him customizing his koi pond, and he has some of the most expensive, really gorgeous koi out there. Koi can be very expensive to acquire if you want certain colors and stuff. I have a koi pond, but it's sad. Like one day an animal came and killed like over 20 of my koi. So I only have like 2 little ones left. It's very depressing. I love koi. And yeah, so Good for Shaq. Like, and just I hope that this puts people like Stephanie and Ray Anthony in front of more eyeballs. The official log line for it. I've sort of hinted at the story, but here's what Archie is saying about the story. An African king of extraordinary physical presence must navigate the brutal transformation from royalty to slavery to piracy, searching for his kidnapped love while discovering the freedom in the Caribbean comes only to those willing to take it by force. So, yeah, apparently, like the existing accounts we do have describe him as very like large and strong and also very, very smart. Some legends say that, he was captured and executed as a pirate, but from what I read, a lot of history says that no, he like lived into maybe his 70s, which is pretty old at the, in the 1700s, retiring as like a barrel maker, basically. And there's a lot of different accounts. I promise it's really interesting history to read about. Just don't expect anything definitive. That's just the way it's going to be. There's not a lot of accounts from that time. Oh my God. Dave, were you the animal that killed all my fish? I did not know that. It's going to be hard to be your friend now. That's tricky. Yeah, Mike, you would have remembered Ray Anthony on the same message boards. Mike was on those boards with me. There's a few people that like we've known each other from before there was like really social media, just message boards. People like, Kirkman and a bunch of the people that draw his comics, and Mike and Ray Anthony and me and a bunch of these people. We've known each other since like probably a little before the year 2000. It's pretty wild. But I'm excited. I think that this is cool. I also have a comic about a pirate I want to write about someday. I won't go too into details, but it's about a pirate queen that's based on like some real history and legends. But the trickiest thing I found while doing my research to put this story together is thinking, well, what kind of an artist is really good at drawing lots and lots of ships and authentic ships at that? That is a tricky thing because our reference isn't as common as modern day cars and buildings and things like that, So, yeah. I never played Shaq Fu. I never played that game. No, I'm afraid I didn't. I'll tell you this. At some point, it seems like it would be a good idea for Jim Mafood and I to review the movie Steel on our show Trash Movie Bonanza. But I wanted to put that on people's radar. Like, what a creative team. What a great topic. I'm excited about this one. I'll be following this story to see, if they give us any sort of preview art, give us a timeline on when it's coming out. So cool. We haven't done Kazam or Steel, but Steel is very likely since it's based on a comic book. Oh, you are right about that. If you folks don't know about Jeremy Bastian, Cursed Pirate Girl, just an incredible comic book. Incredible. Yep, another person. So good. So good. I have an idea for a pirate comic that can stretch like rubber and go on an incredible adventure in the search of an immortal treasure. I call it Stretchy Joe and the Magic Treasure. Oh my God, I would love that. I would love that, my friend. If I win the lottery, I will follow your advice. Let's see what else we've got for news. A quick bit of almost trivia about Captain America. So, Marvel has updated Captain America's modern day de-icing, like when he came into the modern world following World War II. Now it has happened after 9/11, and it's all due to Marvel's sliding time scale, where they say Marvel history doesn't go back to the 60s or anything. It all has taken place within a vague 10-year period. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Thank you for the support, Steve. I've made $2 tonight. Yes. The thing was, pirates never forget. Fantastic Four #5. That's right. The Thing wearing a pirate outfit at some point. What else we got for this? So writer Chip Zdarsky is doing Captain America, and he was on a YouTube show called Dom of X. I have to admit, I don't know that one, but there are a lot of comic book YouTube shows now that I'm hearing about and discovering that I'm like, oh, it's getting a little more crowded. That's okay. I've got my niche. Anyway, so Chip was on the show, right? And he's talking about his current run. It has introduced a new Captain America, a guy named David Colton, who was motivated to serve in the Army after 9/11. He got a new version of the super soldier serum. That's going to become, I think, a plot point in this upcoming Armageddon event that they've got going on. And he served in Afghanistan and Iraq. They're using some real world history. Oh, thanks, Gene. I appreciate it. Happy 10-year anniversary of Comic Tropes from me and Bunker. Thank you. I've got the best sister in the world. Sugar-free Mountain Dew Baja Blast. And of course you're rooting for the Knicks. I get that. I find it hard to root for New York being from Boston, but I think I'm rooting for the Knicks as well. Anyway, let me tell you what Chip specifically said about this. So he was asked if it was tough to retcon Captain America as being thought out after 9/11. And this is part of what he said. I recommend going to the podcast if you want to hear more. I knew the story hinged on it. David Cole's character had to be capturing that time. Steve had to come out of the ice after 9/11. That's what I pitched, and that's what I put in my script. My editor, Alana Smith, was like, I don't know if we can do this. She was like, for a bunch of reasons, primarily the fact that Marvel is a New York publishing company. That makes sense. 9/11 is really important to a lot of the people that still work at Marvel. They were there in New York City when this happened, and it was formative and important. Anyway, Zdarsky eventually convinced Marvel execs that because of Marvel's shifting timeline, it only made sense at this point because it has now been more than 20 years since that event. And they'd have to acknowledge it at some point. So, since his story hinges on the fact that David Colton and Steve Rogers have very different military experiences, it just made sense to make that distinction and say, like, yeah, Captain America, Steve Rogers, was not around during 9/11. He avoided all that. I'm saying, no. We're now saying that Steve Rogers, like his story in Avengers, what was it, Avengers 4, where he gets thawed out of the ice. We're saying that happened maybe somewhere around 2015 or 16. It's vaguely canon. You can't keep everything in Marvel history canon. It's already really, really implausible that Punisher was supposed to have served in Vietnam. Magneto, I think you can sort of get away with the fact that, he was in World War II because you're just like, well, he's a mutant and, his powers could make him long-lived. I just think you can keep that. That's just, he's a mutant. You can do that. But a lot of the things don't make sense anymore. You have to just sort of say, yeah, maybe that sort of adventure happened, but in a different way. It's hard to imagine, oh yeah, Tony Stark got captured by the Viet Cong. That didn't happen, Who was Captain America in ASM 36? We're sort of saying that he wasn't really part of that story. I don't know how you could. Here's a fair point. How important really is continuity? I think that, honestly, continuity has become too serious to a lot of readers. And that it's easier to just focus on each good story or story arc as it goes on. And you can say that they had all these adventures in the past. But to try to reconcile it in your head that all of this stuff actually happened, it's ridiculous. How many Christmas stories have, I don't know, we'll say the Fantastic Four had? Probably more than 10. I think it's a fair thing to do because World War II was way more clear cut than any of the stuff that America has been involved with since. It would only make sense that if there was, a military move to make a new Captain America, he would have a very different experience in what he served. Anyway, I thought I'd mention it. It was interesting. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can get away with stuff like that. And, Punisher has died and come back to life too, but still. Let's see. This is interesting. To quote Len Wein, continuity chains your best writer to your worst writer. I agree. I think it's just not that important to try to reconcile it all as having happened. I think it's more, it's better to just go with most of it happened. Finally, for Marvel stuff, I think anyway, Marvel has announced this week a new Avengers lineup, and that's going to debut not until November. They're getting ahead of this, but it's going to follow the Armageddon event that they've got brewing, which I'm not too excited about personally. I love Chip Zdarsky as a writer. Don't really care that much about Armageddon, I've decided. That said, look at the creative team. Chip Zdarsky and Marco Cicchetto. They're reteaming. They did a great acclaimed run on Daredevil. And if you look at this, they really seem to have focused on mostly a street level team of heroes, which is interesting. Usually Avengers has 2 to 3 real heavy hitters, your Thor, Vision, Iron Man, guys that can go toe to toe with evil gods and stuff. Let's see. There's a book called All of the Marvels that does a decent job explaining how the Marvel shifting timeline works. Okay, well, I appreciate the support. And yeah, I think a shifting timeline is the only thing that makes sense if you're going to keep telling serialized stories without an ending. Ha ha ha. Arma getting tired of these events. I told you, the audience comes up with better jokes than I can on the spot. So anyway, the team is going to be made up of Captain Marvel. So you got one humongous, powerful hero. Spider-Man, Wolverine, Luke Cage, Daredevil. I thought that was interesting. I know Daredevil's worked with the Avengers. He's never really been a full-time member. So that's different. That's interesting. I'm very curious to see how they come up with a story idea for that. Anyway, also an unnamed new superhero who's going to debut in the Armageddon event. The tagline being used is Earth's Mightiest Survivors. Zdarsky told Marvel that, quote, after what happens in Avengers Armageddon, this lineup is angry as hell and ready to avenge. It debuts, of course, in a blind bag with the potential to get one-of-a-kind sketch covers. Armageddon is going to begin June 10th, this week. 2 days. Yeah, exactly. There's usually a story reason for that. Luke just said, "No, you're on the Defenders." It's not Avengers, it's the Defenders. He's like, "Oh, okay." He can still smell them. He's met these people. Eric Carle, Hungry Caterpillar author, born in Syracuse, New York. I did not know that, Steve. Also, I'm fine with shifting timeline. Of course, Chip adds Canadian Wolvie. Of course, right. Chip being a famous Canadian author. I've got to say, it's been a long time that characters like Luke Cage, Wolverine, and Spider-Man have now been Avengers. But when Brian Michael Bendis first did that, fans were losing their minds. They really did. They were like, no, these people can't be Avengers. They're too different. They're doing their own things. Like it was a huge outcry. But I think Bendis was smart. He was like, look, at DC, the Justice League of America always has their biggest characters. It's got Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern, and then a bunch of other weirdos. But it's always got the biggest. And Avengers has been, we've got your sort of core group of Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, And then maybe some like regulars like Scarlet Witch or Ant-Man or Wasp, Black Panther. But he was just like, no, let's take some of our most popular characters and we're going to throw them all in there. And it sold really well. And writers have been using Luke and Wolverine and Spider-Man now for a really long time. But just to be clear, I remember, and at the time, fans were freaking out about it. So, as long as we're talking about what's canon and what's not, I forgot that I had this topic in here. Let me get into a little bit of history here. So, has Marvel made, on the left here, one of their most controversial comics, critically unacclaimed, Trouble, a 5-issue series that started back in 2003. Is that canon? No, not quite, but it's close. Let me explain what it was and what's close. So Trouble was by Mark Millar and Terry Dodson and Rachel Dodson. And it told the story of May, Ben, Richard, and Mary. They did not get last names in the story, but of course we were meant to assume that this was Aunt May, Uncle Ben, his brother Richard, and his wife Mary, Peter Parker's parents. And it was just all them like having a summer job and having sex as teenagers. May becomes pregnant by Richard, and so then Mary and Richard raise him as their own. So it like sort of came up with this retcon that May was technically Peter's biological mother. It didn't go over well, so it's never really been acknowledged as canon. Plus, they never used their last names. And it doesn't quite fit because Ben, Parker, and May were always supposed to be quite a bit older than Ben's sibling, Richard. Like, that's why Peter was growing up with a pretty elderly aunt as compared to somebody that should be closer to his mother's age. But here's what they just did that gets close. Currently, in Amazing Spider-Man, issue 30 just came out of whatever volume. And Spidey recently saved a man, this guy here, that you see here, from a villain called Torment. And Torment's whole deal is that he hunts down biological relatives, zeroing in on you. A serial killer bad guy, okay? And he was targeting, in fact, like relatives of Spider-Man. So Cormac was targeted, and he, like, the villain was like, I kill, relatives of you. And Cormac's like, okay. So Spider-Man saves him, but Cormac looks into his genetic history. And in issue 30, he says that he is the biological son of May and Ben Parker. Obviously super close to what Trouble was, but now they're saying that this is something that happened in main continuity. We'll see how long it lasts, because Marvel has told stories like this before, treated Spider-Man like a wild soap opera. They brought his parents back at one point, but surprise, they were just like robot duplicates or something. Oh, okay. And then they gave him a sister. And then they were like, well, actually, maybe Chameleon was fiddling with her memories. Maybe she's not really his biological sister, because people just weren't that into it. What is a canon event? Did I meet you at New York Comic Con? Is that canon? Yes, that actually happened once, Steve. Didn't read this run. Heard decent things about it. We'll buy the trade soonish. We'll see. Please let this be a company-wide crossover called Trouble Bubble. Hi. Hello, true believers. This is Stan, and I've got a trouble bubble for you. Anyway, so is Trouble canon? No, it never was. Is this the exact same story as Trouble? No, but it's darned close. The idea of retroactively saying, oh, actually, Aunt May did have a kid. After we've been told many times that, Ben and May couldn't have kids. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm willing to see where it goes. The idea of giving Peter a cousin is sort of interesting, depending on what his goals are. But anyway, it definitely seems like they took the ideas from Trouble and were like, well, how could we integrate that more organically? What if we had draft 2 of this idea? She would definitely remember. And she faints when she's like, she goes in the story, she's like, I suspected it because you look just like Ben. Oh, and she has one of her fainting spells. Dude, I kind of agree. I hear about, a cool artist like Marco Cicchetto drawing, and I get excited. I like Chip Zdarsky, but then, a story like this, I'm just like, maybe superheroes are mostly in my rear view window right now. I don't know. I just wanted to talk about it. Thanks for letting me out. Half Marvel, half Paramount stuff here, but Insomniac Games released a game trailer for Marvel's Wolverine, and that's going to launch September 15th exclusively on PlayStation 5. I like Insomniac's games, so I hope it's good. I watched the trailer. Chrissy and I agreed it was kind of funny just how bloody it was, and then how he heals, and also the blood just sort of evaporates and goes away, even though his costume is covered in blood. It's a little weird, but the gameplay did look fun. The game is going to feature X-Men characters like Jean Grey, Sabretooth, Mystique. They've shown that in little snippets. But the X-Men do not exist yet in this world. Wolverine has been active, but there is no X-Men yet. Meanwhile, also a video game trailer, Paramount Games released an announcement trailer for a Ninja Turtles Last Ronin game, headed up by the Bayonetta developer Platinum Games. So there was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles The Last Ronin video game that had been announced already. It was being developed by, Embracer Group, who owns Dark Horse. They own video game studios too. Black Forest Games was developing, but that project has ended and it's starting fresh. Paramount basically is trying to control all its properties more in-house. The goal, is to move their AAA games in-house, more direct control, and it is staffed by people who've worked on some impressive games. The Arkham games, Tekken 8, Mortal Kombat 11, Injustice 2. Those are all some pretty good games. So, 2 potential good games. Last Ronin's quite a ways off. This was just an announcement trailer announcing that a different game studio is making it. I've been pecking away at a comic book video game lately, Lego Batman Legends of the Dark Knight. It's fun. It's probably not my favorite Lego game, but it is fun. It's good. Oh, speaking of Turtles, IDW announced this week that issue 20 of Ninja Turtles, which is their legacy issue 300, don't ask me to double check that math. Close enough, sure. Their 300 issue topped pre-orders of over 200,000 copies. That's an impressive number. That's a pretty big number. The issue does have a blind bag edition. Of course it does. It does have covers by some artists who, believe it or not, never worked on Ninja Turtles before, like Frank Miller and J. Scott Campbell. I could have sworn that Frank Miller had drawn like a pinup or something of Ninja Turtles, but apparently no, not officially. Brunson, good to see you. Oh, and also, this is kind of cool. There's a cover that was penciled in the past by Peter Laird and was recently inked by his fellow co-creator, Kevin Eastman. So the creators of Ninja Turtles will have what's said to be a new piece of artwork as a cover. That would be the one that I want. I swear, like, this has got to be one of those Mandela effect things, because I could have sworn Frank Miller drew Ninja Turtles, but I did a search and I could not find an official for Ninja Turtles Frank Miller drawing of them. So yeah, not all of them, but a lot. TMNT has made it to issue 2300, and in large part thanks to you, Andy. Large part thanks to you. You had a pretty amazing run when IDW just started it, and I think overall the IDW run is pretty fantastic. Honestly, it blends together the best parts of a lot of different iterations of Ninja Turtles. I like the IDW run a lot. But what else? The issue is going to begin a new storyline by writer Gene Lin Yang, artist Freddie E. Williams II. It's called The City That Never Dies, and it features an upheaval between the worlds of the living and the dead due to the resurrection of the Turtles' parents. Ooh. I have no way of listing all of those right now. That is just a wild ask. I'm sorry. I would have a hard time figuring it out. I was just about to ask if Eastman and Laird would be doing something. Yep. You know, Peter Laird is largely retired. He's a little older than Kevin Eastman, so he's by and large very much retired. He doesn't do a whole lot, but they do still talk apparently. And I think that honestly, the people that got them talking again, cartoonist kayfabe, they got Laird and Eastman to do a couple episodes of their show where they went through page by page some of their old original Ninja Turtles comics, and I think that's amazing. I think that's so cool. The issue is also going to feature a backup story by longtime writer Tom Waltz. It's going to feature the time traveler Renee. That goes back to the Eastman and Laird comics. She was in something I don't know off the top of my head, but something like 7 or 8. And it's going to feature a tour of Ninja Turtles past, and they're using a bunch of artists from Ninja Turtles past. We've got Ben Bates, Eric Talbot, Chris Allen, Frank Fosco. That's an interesting choice. I feel like Ninja Turtles often looks over that image run. Jim Lawson, Dan Duncan. It's not everybody that I'd want to see there, but it's kind of cool that they're getting a few people from the past. Yeah. How long has J. Scott Campbell only done covers? I don't think he's really done an interior story since Danger Girl, and that was, over 20 years ago now. Oh, that would have been cool, but, they're still working out whether they'll be able to reprint Veach's stories from then. Looks like they showed off the Miller cover in March. So, yeah, they showed what's coming for this, but I'm just saying, my only argument was prior to this cover, I don't think Frank Miller officially ever drew Ninja Turtles, even though he was totally in that world of these people. He's definitely done, Madman, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's done a Hellboy sketch or something like that. I don't remember Wildsiders, sorry. Interesting. The Image Ninja Turtles run was very interesting. It was very dark. It was cool. It definitely did a bunch of new things, and I like him for that. I like that it did a bunch of new things. I like the art, but overall, it was kind of a depressing era. The Turtles all went through some really bad stuff. Let me talk about great artist, writer of comics that unfortunately passed away. So if you didn't hear about this, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Some of you may have heard about it, but let me talk a little bit about this person. French-Iranian comic creator and film director, Marjane Satrapi. She passed away this past week, only 56 years old, not much older than me. Her family stated, I don't know what they mean by this exactly, but they said that she died from sadness. She did lose her husband just over a year ago. So maybe she stopped taking care of herself. I don't know what that means. But it is sad. Probably the comic that you would hear about if you know the name Marjane Satrapi is Persepolis, a great 2-volume set that then has been collected into a big volume. Really incredible autobiography. She later directed it as an animated film. Also really good. And all in black and white. Oh, I've definitely read Persepolis. I read it back when it came out. I'm so grateful that I took a chance on it because it's really interesting. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Yeah, but what does it mean? Anyway. So 1983, Marjane's parents were like really politically active. They considered themselves Marxists. They were definitely against the Shah. So they sent her to Austria to finish her studies, following like the 1979 revolution that put Ayatollah Khomeini in power. And before that, Iran was, like a lot of the rest of Europe, honestly. It was way closer to Europe than what we think of as Iran today. But that was when the religious fundamentalism began. And the story of like the 1979 Iranian revolution is its own whole story. But this is a story about what she went through. She returned home because she was homesick, and she was in a privileged position. Her parents were pretty well to do. And she got to attend the University of Tehran. She got a degree in visual communications. And that's what allowed her to become a comic book creator and movie and TV director and producer. She left in 94 for France. And that's where she basically lived since then. Other comics that she made include Chicken with Plums. And some of her films, The Voices was one she directed. That starred Ryan Reynolds. He's like this schizophrenic like retail worker. It's pretty weird. The thing I think, aside from Persepolis, that's really cool is she did this series. It was called Radioactive. I think it was on Hulu, if I'm remembering right. It starred that lady from Gone Baby Gone and the James Bond movie, like Die Another Day. What's her name? Anyway, it's called Radioactive, and it's about the life of Mary Curie, which is really interesting. I can't remember the actress's name right now. Yeah, she directed other films, Kevin. So she was a really interesting person. She accomplished a lot. If you haven't read it, I really do recommend Persepolis because it's a fascinating time period. And it's so deeply personal. It's just such a great angle on the whole, it's hard to take in big events, but when you can dial it down and make it so personal as like one person's perspective on those events, super interesting. Yeah, I think it's Rosamund Pike that starred as Mary Curie in her movie. I think that is the actress's name. Thank you. Anyway, sad that she's gone because she was still creating stuff and really talented. It's really amazing, her work. And if you have either seen the film or read the comic Persepolis, even though it's the same story, I sincerely recommend getting both because they're very different experiences, going panel to panel and then going with sort of animation that like has that same art style, but is more experimental here and there. Really both great, really great. So had to mention her. I'll pivot to something else. This is interesting. I don't think EJ Su is with us, but EJ is from Taiwan, so he'd be excited to hear about this. The Euler Wu Collaborative is a successful architectural firm in Los Angeles. That's an understatement. They won the international competition to design the upcoming National Taiwan Museum of Comics. This is one of their renderings for what it will be, and I'll speak to that. 2017, the government in Taiwan mandated the creation of a museum dedicated to their history with comics. They wanted to share their cultural history with comic books and also create a bridge to the future of comic book making globally. One of the cool defining features of this building is a secondary layer of fritted glass subtly embedded with comic-inspired graphics. That's why you sort of see these colors and shapes over here. These will be like, I don't know exactly which comics they'll use at the end. Hey, you are here, EJ. You'll obviously, as somebody that gets to go there, eventually get to see this, I assume. But yeah, and then they're going to have spaces for rotating vinyl graphics. It looks, it's like over 20,000 square feet. It's a really good size museum that they're going to build. I really think it sounds cool. Taiwan's manhwa really exploded post-war. So 1950s, you know, there are examples of them doing some comics before, but kind of similar to Japan and a little bit Korea. 1950s and forward, they started making their own comic books. Some of the popular genres, at least from my point of view, from what I've looked at, include, of course, history. There's going to be a lot of Chinese history and a lot of Taiwanese history. And then also, they really seem to be into just modern day slice of life stories, working a certain job, just, you know, relationship stuff. Those seem to be the genres that readers there really respond to. And there's definitely several famous Taiwanese artists who've made a big impact globally. But I think this is so cool, the idea that they'll have a comic book museum. Oh my God, I know. Like, we should definitely have an official comic book museum. I mean, technically, I guess we do when you talk about like the Billy Ireland Museum, but that's a college installation. You know what I mean? The building does have greebles. I mean, just imagine how cool it would be in either DC or New York City to have a huge museum dedicated to the history of American comics. There's so much. I don't know that I've got like too many. I've read some stuff by Tony Wong. That's more Hong Kong. I've read some other stuff, but I wouldn't say a lot of it has made an impact of what I've explored. But I did go to the Hong Kong comic book museum. It's small. It's more like a library with some features. And that was cool. And I've read some Hong Kong manhwa. I don't know if there's any famous books from Taiwan that I've read, just to be clear, to answer your question. Anyway, I thought I'd put that out there, though. So, you know, if somebody's planning on visiting Taiwan at some point I will. My one of my best friends, Evan, got married October of last year, and her whole family is from Taiwan. So at some point, we're planning on doing like a second wedding in Taiwan. That's the current plan. And yeah, so that'll give us an excuse to go there. I've always wanted to visit. As long as I'm talking about comics from Southeast Asia, let me say that DanDaDan, fairly recent, all things considered, ongoing manga. But this week, its official Twitter said that they passed 14 million copies in print worldwide. 14 million is a massive number. The best-selling manga or comic of all time, basically One Piece and Superman, they're both around 600 million. Not many get anywhere close to either of those, to be clear. But 14 million, that's a massive number. If you haven't read it, just in brief, I'll talk about it a little later today, a little bit, because the newest volume came out, and I am definitely a huge fan of it. But it's a shonen story, but it blends in action and teen romance. It's sci-fi and the supernatural explicitly. The author, writer, and artist Yukinobu Tatsu began DanDaDan in April of 2021. So that's how old it is. Not very old, in my opinion. Just over 5 years. It gets published on the Shonen Jump Plus app as compared to in something like Weekly Shonen Jump. Don't ask me why they decide to do some things in print and some things digitally. I can't follow that. Volume 24 of the manga comes out in Japan this month. Volume 19 is what just came out here. So we're always like about 5 volumes back. We could be closer. In fact, you can read it in English almost the same day, I think. But it debuts on the Shonen Jump Plus app on Mondays. An anime adaptation, some of you may have at least seen that began in 2024, season 2 in 2025. They have announced a season 3, but it's not coming until 2027 because the animation studio that does it took another job and they don't want to like reassign it to a whole different group of people. They're just going to be patient and wait. I do too. I love it, but I will say I slightly prefer the manga. I really like Yukinobu Tatsu's art. I really like it. Let's see. Jump Plus being $2.99 monthly is so negligible. I wish American comic apps were closer to that. You get I'm not subscribed to it right now, but I have been in the past, especially if I'm doing like a review or, an episode about manga that's on Shonen Jump, because $2.99 is just so affordable. For a month, you get access to their new comics and a massive backlog. So it's a really good value. I agree. As far as like the digital platforms go, it might be the best deal in comics. It really, yeah. Science Saru is the animation studio, and they took some of, I forget what the other job is. It's big. It's something prominent. Like, I could be wrong about it being like Evangelion, but it's something big like that. Yeah, $2.99. You get the new issues like basically the same day. I think that they do use, I'm not sure, but I think that they probably use some AI translation at first and then localize it with a real person after so that it comes out like really quickly. Yeah, there you go. It's free in English on the Shueisha Manga Plus site, but you're limited to like the latest 3 issues. Oh, Ghost in the Shell. That was it. You're right. Thank you, everybody. Yep, Ghost in the Shell. And I guess I sort of get that. You get hired. Ghost in the Shell is a really big property. Ultimately, I'm okay waiting a year or two for another season because I can keep up with the manga in the meantime. And, eventually you can just binge it all or something. I'd rather wait because it is a good studio. They do some really nice animation. Yeah. Next month. Got it. Yeah. So they're doing that for a little while. Here's something I totally missed. I came across it this week. I bet a bunch of you already knew about this, but this drove me nuts that I missed this. So Clover Press did a Kickstarter to release issue 87 of Nightwing. That's by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo. You may remember I did a whole episode dedicated to motion in comics that really started and focused on this book because it was just unlike anything else I'd really come across. Well, not completely unlike, but it's still unique. So it's going to do accordion style, a single long page to honor this book that doesn't have any panels. It all just scrolls left to right with the characters moving in space, like multiple Nightwings. But there's no panel breaks. It's all literally just one single drawing that goes all the way across. Like the background stays the same. It's incredible storytelling. Experimental, but really reads well. You can probably hear Jack shouting. It's so dumb. What's the deal with Donatello? When he died, he became a ghost in the show. So I totally missed that, right? I also missed that you could pre-order the comic because it's coming to comic shops. Yesterday was the cutoff for that, final order cutoff. But the hardcover edition is coming to comic book stores, so I thought I'd at least tell you that much. It's going to be $44.99. It's one issue. It's hardcover. Unfolds to about 159 inches long. There is a Radiant Black issue that was published special like this, so I have seen it done before, but very, very cool. A little like a Japanese scroll painting. It's definitely using, yes, De Luca is an Italian artist that I talk about extensively in my episode about motion and comics. And yeah, so just really, really so cool. I'm so sorry that this wasn't on my radar sooner, because I would have loved to have supported the Kickstarter and at least given people the option to get it. I think it's a really fantastic presentation. And what I'm super curious about is what's on the other side. I don't know. There's got to be something. I'm going to assume that it's going to be back matter, maybe like talking about the making of it or something like that. I don't know. Exactly. This is slightly cooler because it's just storytelling like you've never seen before. It was a very cool issue. If nothing else, find yourself a back issue of Nightwing 87. It's just a one and done great story. DC is doing something new. DC's digital scrolling comics app is called DC Go, and it's going to feature its first crossover in October. They're calling it Runway to Ruin. Okay. Crossover is going to start with an alpha episode by Patrick R. Young, art by Andrew Drillin. Going to weave through the 5 ongoing books that they've got. Books? I don't know what to call them. Titles. And then it's going to finish that same month with an Omega episode. And then they're going to debut 3 new original webcomics after that and launch new seasons of 2 more of their ongoings. Here's 2 of the books that are new. Warriors and a Tween Wonder. That's by Stephanie Williams. Second time getting mentioned tonight in the news. Told you she's busy. And artist Dominic Bustamante. And there's also Poison Ivy and Briarwood by writers C.R.C. Payne and artist Bale Rosenland. So that could be fun. This all coincides with the line's first print releases in October 2026. And basically we've got like Nothing But Nightwing, Harley Quinn in Paradise, and Raven. Who's the artist on Nothing But Nightwing? Sorry, hold on. Let me tell you about this artist. That's not who I thought it was. Huh. All right, never mind. I'm not finding what I thought I was going to find. I just thought I'd put it on people's radar. Here's another crazy DC thing. It feels weird to talk about this. This is about, it involves Bilquis Evely, who is the artist that I just made my latest comic Tropes about. But this is some news that just came out this week. So comic fans are a bit confused over this new print that was available on the DC Comics shop. It's by Bilquis Evely, and it's based on the movie version of Supergirl, not the comics, even though she drew those. She's drawing the movie version. Here's what confused people. First of all, it's a metal print for $120, and it features an alien here in the middle at the top. That is clearly based on a Star Wars alien called the Lexo Sugar. Go Star Wars, always giving us those great names. That alien was in deleted scenes in The Last Jedi. But let me show you. This is not traced, by the way. It doesn't line up. But it's clearly that alien. Like, that is the Star Wars alien. What's a Star Wars alien doing in a Supergirl Warner Brothers thing? You know, Disney owns Star Wars. Well, it's unclear how Evely was given this reference, But there is a great chance that it was a mix-up based on the fact that this movie's alien, Star Wars alien, looks super close to one that actually is in Supergirl. As you can see here, there's Jason Momoa sitting next to the prop. As you can see, sort of wears a dress, super long neck, same colors, no hair. It's not the exact same, but there's some similarities there. Did Bilquis look up the wrong alien? Probably not. I bet you anything she was given reference by the studio and that like it was just put on, like an intern or something like that. So I don't know. Yeah, exactly. I don't think she made the choice to get it. I think she was given reference for like these aliens that we see here and like the outfit that, Ruth is wearing, because that's not what she wears in the comic. It's a little different. I don't know how it happened, but I can sort of understand how somebody could confuse these if they happen to be like looking for the wrong thing. I don't know exactly how though. The similarity was noticed on June 4th. We're on the 8th now, and I looked because just before I did the show, I went to look at the listing on the DC Comics Shop. It's now been taken down. You can't find it on the DC Comics Shop now. No, I mean, it looks also like, what do you call the bad guys in the Halo games? I forget their names, but there's some very similar alien designs in that. Anyway, DC didn't issue a comment or anything, but they have taken the item down. That said, let me pivot to one cool thing about the Supergirl movie, and that is this. If you see the Supergirl movie at an AMC on the first 2 days, Thursday, Friday, the 25th or 26th, as long as your theater has it in supply, they're going to give you a copy of the first issue of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow by Tom King, Bilquis Evely, and Matt Lopez. I think it's an incredible book. It's got a new cover designed for, the release. But I think that this is a great idea. Can you imagine if every time you went to see an Avengers or a Batman, they gave you an actual, like, popular existing comic book? I think that would be a really smart way to get people into the comic. So I'm glad they did that. But the rest of it, I don't understand. Dude, movie theaters have so much crap in them now trying to sell stuff, but I feel like they could probably sell a few comic books or trade paperbacks more easily than some of the junky, cheap toys that they have. Oh, the alien was based off of your grandma. That does make sense. My AMC is pretty busy. I saw... what do you call it? Masters of the Universe. And it was very full. Even though I've heard that movie didn't do that well, my theater was packed. And I didn't even see it on opening day. Yeah, but in Japan, I mean, the synergy between comic book, anime, video game, toys, it's so much different than what we do here. Anyway, I thought I'd point that out. If you're going to see it, and you've got an AMC, maybe you want to get a free comic. Speaking of DC, last week, one of the big pieces of news was that the Black Comic Alliance said that they were going to start a DC Comics boycott until they got more representation, but they called it off within a few days. The boycott is over. They did release a press release from their leader, James Portis III, also known as Jay Penumbra online. And he elaborated that the conversation of Black representation at DC is still important. So they're going to continue to do that. They do want more Black creators and more Black characters, but they're going to just pivot to having it as just their hashtag DC So White. There was a lot of pushback. I mean, I pushed back in my episode. I said, great goal. Not sure a boycott helps because, it's hurting some of the creators. It's hurting the stores. And I think that they basically agreed pretty quickly, to be honest. So The group pivoted to asking supporters to instead focus on pre-ordering comics that feature Black characters or Black creators, because that helps, obviously, the creator, helps the store, gets the word out. So they said they're focusing more on educating people on what final order cutoff is and letting people make those orders speak with their wallet in a different way. The boycott just seemed misguided and almost rushed, but I like the goal of it. I like the goal, but yeah, I think that is a very fair tactic to have a hashtag and put out videos and put out conversation, put out education. So, you know, I wish them luck. I hope that this does lead to DC stepping up. That said, I don't think that DC is alone in how they do things. I think that DC is just very successful now, so it makes sense to sort of have targeted them. Another follow-up from last week, Dark Horse's employees asked Dark Horse to recognize their union. Well, they announced their intention to form a union, and this week, Dark Horse just voluntarily recognized the union. That's actually not that common for a company to voluntarily recognize a union. Usually it has to go to a vote. And then, you know, a big union acknowledges it, and then they have the bargaining power. It isn't usually as simple as the company just voluntarily recognizes a union. So that's a win for the employees, but Dark Horse, to their credit, didn't fight it at all. Jay Comas is the interim CEO there, and he stated, quote, "I'm pleased to announce that Dark Horse Comics is willing to voluntarily recognize Dark Horse Workers United as a recognized collective bargaining representative under standards established by the National Labor Relations Board. Our representatives have reached out to the union's attorney to initiate the appropriate next steps in this process." So this quick recognition is going to allow the employees to right away start engaging in what's called collective bargaining. You know, they put out what their demands essentially are, and hopefully, because both parties seem to be talking, without any real friction, it leads to some concessions. Their biggest things were wage parity. They felt like wages had been stagnant, and they understand that, some of that is based on business decisions, but that certain executives they felt were being compensated way more than certain people at the bottom, and that they needed to balance that out a little bit more. And that does make sense. But they also said that they wanted to make sure that Dark Horse remains committed to creator-owned comics. And, to their credit, Dark Horse is acknowledging it. Well, you say, wow, a union in comics. Let me give you some more news. One last piece here. Dark Horse actually has now become the third comics publisher to have a union, following Image Comics from a couple of years ago and Seven Seas last year. So 3 different companies. You have to imagine that some of the bigger companies like Marvel and DC have to be going like, oh, geez, we might be about to have to recognize a union. Hey, thanks for the super chat. That's so generous. The new Supergirl movie is loosely based on her weird seatbelt safety comic. One of my favorite episodes that I made. Such a weird comic. I heard that they even grudgingly shortened the original title based on your suggestion. Thank you, JSA 141. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, I love Supergirl's weird comic about seatbelt safety. Thank you very much. Finally, it's in movie form. What's the deal with Supergirl movies? Shouldn't they be based on her public service announcements? What's the deal? I don't know what I'm doing. Almost done with the news. Then we'll do some reviews and then some drawing. But Comics Beat interviewed Kelly Thompson, writer of Absolute Wonder Woman, but soon to be the writer of both Buffy and Angel at Dynamite. And a few things got revealed. You know what? I'm going to talk about the news, but I just realized it would probably... I need to acknowledge something. As a Buffy fan, huge Buffy fan, Sadly, one of the main cast members passed away this past week. Anthony Head. He played Giles, Buffy's mentor, in the show. Great father figure, really cool dude, not boring at all, like really interesting. He's been in tons of good stuff. You know, he was in Ted Lasso. He was the evil owner of the team. He was in Merlin as Uther Pendragon, right? The father of Arthur. He was on that show, The In-Betweeners. He's been in tons of stuff. A lot of people still even remember he made this famous series of Nestea coffee commercials back in the day. They were sort of like mini soap operas that like had a continuing story, a romance. But he was great. He was great. He could do a lot. And yeah, it's just a little sad that for a show that wasn't on that long ago, it's amazing how many cast members have sadly passed away due to like weird circumstances. He was on Warehouse 13. Yeah, Repo, the Genetic Opera. He was the, what do you call it? In the UK, the Prime Minister on Little Britain. He's in tons of stuff. Tons of stuff. Yes! Murray Head, One Night in Bangkok, one of the first hit songs to actually feature rap, believe it or not. But yeah, he was great. But at least the character is living on, and that's kind of nice. He was really cool. He did a lot of stuff, and everybody seemed to have really liked him. Anyway, regarding this upcoming comic, Kelly Thompson said that Buffy's and Angel, they each are going to have like a first issue, like a week apart, but they're going to act as sort of a 2-part pilot, sort of setting up the new status quo for each book, but they're going to be connected. There's going to be a new danger in Buffy's adopted home of Sunnydale, California, and it's going to bring all the characters there. Kelly also said that there's going to be some new supporting characters, and a few old ones will get to feature in upcoming story arcs. Like the goal is to, bring them all in, but don't like overwhelm people. They said she said Lorne and Gunn from Angel will be in her book, but they're going to be like sort of protecting Los Angeles while Angel is doing stuff in Sunnydale in the first arc. There's going to be, of course, a new big bad, which was described as both new and very old. Don't know what that means yet. But also new vampires that have wings and can fly. That's a cool addition, something that you couldn't probably do affordably on the small TV budget, but you could add to the comic and would actually make the vampires a lot more dangerous. I like that idea. I like Buffy a lot. Dawn will be in this book. Kelly Thompson did say that Dawn will be. In fact, Dawn comes up with the new name for these, calling them something like vamp wires because they've got wiry wings. They can fly now. They can fly now. Oh goodness! Look at you guys all. They fly now. Is that the most memorable thing to have come out of Rise of Skywalker or whatever it was called, that last movie in the trilogy? They can fly now. Anyway, after the first story arc, Angel will be returning to LA to continue as a detective. That was one other thing they said. But I am excited for this. Great covers by David Nakayama. Not super familiar with the interior artists on them, but definitely going to give them a try. Somehow they can fly now. And finally, Todd McFarlane was in the news on this show called The Escape Podcast. I told you there's a bunch of new comic book shows, and I'm just not familiar with all of them. But I watched a bunch of this one to see what Todd had to say. He said one thing that I think is controversial, but he will argue is not. So Todd was on the Escape podcast, and they asked him straight out, like, how he feels about AI. He says he doesn't understand why it upsets people and that it is, quote, a tool. McFarlane expanded on that. He also said, every tool that came along in the history of mankind has put somebody out of business. How's that for an impression? I feel like that's pretty good. Anyway, he likened it to how DVD manufacturers are now 90% gone because of streaming and, quote, why don't we cry for them? I get his argument, but I don't think it's quite accurate. It could be a tool in certain situations, the technology behind it. But what people have the problem with, Todd, is how the image generation is trained without consent on other artists. He had this really weird part where he said, if you ask me to design a gun for a movie, I'll have an artist come up with like 2 or 3 concepts. And you're limited to just like those 2 or 3 concepts. But, you know, if the artist doesn't do a good job, then you don't have a good thing. But if you ask AI, it'll give you 20 options. So one of them will be good. And I said, that logic doesn't make sense. It's still going to create like something so similar. Oh, it bothered me. Just to be clear, though, he's sort of consistent because back in March of 2024, to remind you, digital artist Luis Ruiz won the Spawn cover contest, and that account proudly uses Midjourney to create all sorts of comic book art. The artist said he only used Procreate and Photoshop for his entry, but it's like, why does that entry look the same as all the ones you say you got a great result with Midjourney? Ugh. I didn't see the ad, but I also heard that Scorsese is like, you know, absolutely great AI. And I'm like, oh no. Like the generation just above mine doesn't quite get the problems. It's a losing battle to try to like educate everybody, but it was a little disheartening. I have to admit, it was a little disheartening because I love Todd. I think he's a great storyteller. I think he's a very good businessman. I think he is a smart guy. I think he's a kind guy. I do think he's misguided and he's on the wrong path on this particular one. So it's too bad. It's too bad, in my opinion, but it is what it is. That said, that was the news, and I think that what we should do next is pivot to some comic book reviews, because while there weren't that many comics that I picked up this week, what I did pick up was absolutely incredible. So give me a moment to set things up. We're going to pivot over to reviews.
Let's review.
Review it.
The review.
The reviews are in. I repeat, the reviews are in.
Go to your reviews.
What? Speaking of bad reviews.
Don't worry about that review.
Let's review all the facts.
All right, gentlemen, let's review.
Before we do, let's review.
Those reviews really came out fast.
Maybe we can review some right now?
I'm not going to review all that again.
Now let's review.
Not my worst review.
Let's review, shall we? To review.
I think I've reviewed about as much as I can.
All right. Do I have this centered up all right? Yep, there we go. Good. Thank you for giving me a moment of time to get that set up. So, I actually only picked up 4 like floppies this week. I'm going to talk in a little more detail about the first 2 because I like them a lot. I've talked a little bit about the Royals, and I had Derek Kirk-Kim and artist Jacob Perez on this show a couple months ago. Folks, this book is so damn good. It's at its heart, it's a crime story, okay? And it's got 2 brothers who have a telepathic connection with each other. They're twins, Castor and Paul, as in Castor and Pollux. I'll zoom in a little bit more for you. And they have a tough dynamic going. Like, Castor is much more shallow, and he really irritates Paul, but they've got a bond. You know, they're twin brothers, and they use this connection. They can't read other people's minds or anything like that. They can just talk to each other telepathically. And they've been using it to win poker tournaments. Like one of them can sort of see what other people are doing. But they got caught by a South Korean mobster. And he's basically strong-armed them into stealing a relic from a local church, a very valuable relic, to sort of make it up to him what they've stolen. They're in way over their heads. And I gotta be honest, Castor drives me kind of nuts. He just does not take things seriously enough. But I believe in him. Like most heist things, they lay out what their plan is, and then none of that quite works out. Like they think that they'll go at night when it's quiet, but the church is hosting this huge bingo night. So it's full of people. I can't show you the last few pages because it just utterly changes so much of what this is about. I got to say, though, one thing I love is when there are action scenes, it feels very manga-esque. Lots of panels focusing on tiny little movements, like this scene where Castor is tying up a security guard with duct tape. Lots of cool little moves. It feels very choreographed, like you could sort of see this being used as a storyboard. And I mean that in a good way. It just reads smoothly. There's a flow. There's a great bit of the action feels convincing but dynamic, and I loved it. I love it. I love the characters in this. I believe in them, and it just as soon as their little mini heist goes wrong, it becomes heartbreaking. There is some weird stuff going on in the church. The villain absolutely has these two brothers totally scoped out. It ends on a cliffhanger. I've never seen a cliffhanger like this. I have zero idea what could even possibly happen next. It was just mind-blowing. I was talking to Dave here, who also read it, and we were both like, where could this be going now? Like, this is such a huge twist to the story. Great art, great characters. It is one of my favorite books that's coming out right now. I'm going to zoom back out just a little bit here. Oh my God, do I give it a strong recommend? They're not quite Devil Dragons, although they're close because they both studied MMA. So they've got a lot of interesting skills and backgrounds. The art is fantastic. This is the first comic book Jacob has ever drawn. Comes from a background in animation, though. So does Derek. And I think they speak each other's language really well. I'm very impressed. I just cannot give it a strong enough recommendation. But at this point, anything else I'd be saying would just be gushing over stuff that would be spoilers for you if you haven't read it. Is it better than Last Mermaid? It's a very different story. You know, Last Mermaid is an epic, post-apocalyptic, sort of sci-fi type of a book. And the art by Derek is a little different than Royals. So they're both very good. Let's see. I'm probably way off base, but I have the impression that Royals feels like the comics I grew up with that came out of Belgium. Yeah, I see a little bit of that. It's incredible. It really is, guys. This is going to fly under a lot of people's radars, but I'd rather try to talk it up right now when it's only on issue 3 and you can get caught up, and maybe we can even give this series a jolt, because this is something special. It made me think, what are my favorite ongoing books right now? Because I read a bunch of books and I like a bunch of them. But what do I absolutely love that I read first? And I go, Royals, Escape by Rick Remender and Daniel Acuna. Battle Beast is, for some reason, one of my favorites. It's funny and the art is incredible. Absolute Wonder Woman, Absolute Batman, and then these two manga, Billy Bat and DanDaDan. Those would be the ones that right now I put at my absolute top. I read them the second I have them. I want other people to read them. Sorry, yes, I'd also include Farrell, actually. Good point. I would include Farrell, and I think I even listed it in a social media post. Well, I don't think you'll be disappointed. It goes in twists and turns, and when there's action sequences, they're just so well executed, and they're given room to breathe, you know? So good. But I see a little bit about what you're talking about, Mike, because, you know, it focuses on the adventure and it doesn't slow things down. It's well paced. It integrates any important exposition or character work right into the scene, which things like Tintin did really well. And it's got nice, clean line art. That's like it's very clean. It's very nice to look at. It's very pleasant. Loved it. One of my favorite things I've read in a little while. Top 5 Vertigo comics. If Swamp Thing counts, I'm definitely going to put that in there. Hellblazer, Preacher, Why the Last Man, and Fables. I think those were all Vertigo. I think. Another really fun one. I can't quite put it on the same tier, but it is very fun, is issue 10 of Batman. I feel like Jorge Jimenez is pushing himself into a little bit more stylization, like cartooniness, but not in a bit like super exaggerated way. I just feel like there's something every time I'm reading an issue. It feels just like there's a small evolution going on right now, and I like it. We get a little bit of background evolution with the Minotaur is a villain that we got introduced to several issues ago, and I'd sort of forgotten about him, but supposedly he works with all the crime families. Well, he comes out without his mask on to confront like one of the gangsters, and that was interesting. I'll skip that little side story because I don't want to spoil anything too much, but it was interesting. I liked, where is that one page? There's a page where Batman sees Catwoman across the building. This page. I really like this page. I guess now that I look at it, there's no dialogue. And the way Jorge has laid this out to show the separation, you know, we're seeing Batman from Catwoman's perspective and Catwoman from Batman's perspective. The fact that there's an actual panel border there really does help show that there's a division between these characters right now. Very, very like subtle expressions, very subtle expressions. You know, they're looking at each other. There's a lot being unsaid there. And then she leaves without them talking. She you know, jumps away and Batman turns the other direction. Very good storytelling. I just really liked it. You know, not a whole lot's going on here. And at the same time, this tells us a lot about where these characters are in relationship to each other. And it just looks nice. You know, there's something cool about how things are shaded and, you know, how things are composed. I like it quite a bit. I really do. So this is a fun book. It's got some good adventure. It's got some great action. Look at that. That's just a beautiful pinup there. That's Batman with his new bat signal, which makes all the sense in the world. You know, we've always had the bat signal just like projected up against a cloud. Hopefully there's a cloud in Gotham tonight because, you know, the police need to reach Batman. He releases a ton of drones that can be signaled. And I'm like, of course that's what we'd be doing today is like LED drones. That makes all the sense in the world. Really smart. Really good update. I've heard that the Poison Ivy book relates a little, but anyway, it's a really nice book. You know, it's not trying to do too much with any one issue. Each issue is sort of giving you a little bit of like drama with characters and a little bit of adventure. But it's kind of like each issue feels more or less complete. There's an ongoing story, but it feels complete. It's like, wow, why did we not think of this maybe 10 years ago? It makes so much more sense, really. And I don't think it takes anything away. I'm just like, I love that idea. Like that would still be like a scary signal for, you know, somebody trying to break into a building and then they see like the Batman signal all lit up in the sky. That'd be incredible. Yeah, Matt Fraction is the writer, and Jorge Jimenez is the monthly artist. I think that they're doing a nice job. One thing that's also small, but I like, is they are slowly fleshing out little bits of Gotham. There's always little notes of, Old Town, Little Tokyo. And anytime Jorge Jimenez is establishing a scene like that, there's typically a little bit of artwork that just gives that area a little personality. The Lower West Side, we can see a little more small business, elevated train. Makes me think of like Brooklyn or Queens a little bit. Coventry is more of sort of like the Upper East Side where you're starting to get to Harlem, if we're comparing it to Manhattan. Anyway, it's really good. Let me pivot to the manga that came out this week. I'll go with DanDaDan first, because Billy Bat is really something special. This is a volume that wraps up the current arc with the main characters going up against a really cool entity. It looks kind of like a series of playing cards. But this supernatural entity has tricked people into coming into a diorama that feels like sort of a D&D scene. You go up against, medieval type monsters and stuff. And the heroes thought that they were beating these monsters to free themselves from this little diorama prison. But in fact, they were being tricked by this entity. They were breaking seals that would allow him to come out. There's some really great emotional stuff with this cop and sort of a local hoodlum that he's semi-adopted, and their beautiful relationship with each other. There's some wonderful romance stuff between Momo and Okarun. It just gives me everything I want, including some really beautiful artwork. Let me find something cool. This is a girl whose best friend wanted to become a teen idol. Her best friend died and became like a spirit, but now the spirit is trying to make her best friend become a teen idol. So sometimes she transforms her into these strange costumes and stuff. It's funny. What's a great... Oh, look at this. Every once in a while, there's 2-page spreads. This is where hundreds of gang members were in this diorama, and all of a sudden gravity goes away. And so they all just sort of lift up right away, except for one person that something unique is happening to. Anyway, it's a great arc. I've heard that after this, things change because some of the characters lose their abilities and some memories get reset, things like that. But this is a fantastic volume anyway. Great art, really emotional stuff, funny stuff. Gives me everything I want out of this. And it moves at just such a great pace. Such a great pace. But one of the coolest things is it introduces this new character. This guy that's like a hunter of some sort, okay? And he hunts down these demons. And he says, have you ever heard of DanDaDan? We've never heard an explanation for the title, DanDaDan. So he says this. He goes, are you familiar with DanDaDan? And if you look, this is like a mandala with a lot of Hindu mythology imagery mixed in. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means yet. So this is an interesting hint at what's to come. Oh, the umbrella story is heartbreaking. Yes, I definitely read that stuff. It was incredible. I need to read DanDaDan, need my Turbo Granny fix. There's a lot of Turbo Granny stuff in this. There's a lot in this volume, and she's really interesting. I never thought Rin would become one of my favorite characters but she is. There's some great characters in this book. Anyway, I'd always been thinking that DanDaDan was this is the end of words in Japanese that indicate certain types of stories. Like I forget what's what off the top of my head, but for instance, kaidan, I think means supernatural story. Okay. And so I thought that like maybe that it's because this book is about sci-fi and supernatural, and it was like Dan, but they just shortened it to DanDaDan. But I don't know now. I don't know if it means something else, because he just asks the spirit, "Are you familiar with DanDaDan?" And we see this huge mandala, and I don't know what the mandala represents yet. But it's an interesting and intriguing bit of lore to be introducing this far into the run. Great volume. So we have finally got Billy Bat in English. Now, I am a massive fan of Naoki Urasawa. You know, I loved Pluto and 20th Century Boys and Master Keaton. Asadora I talk up when we got new issues. So I had actually picked up the entire Japanese run of this book during one of my visits to Japan, just so that I could sort of get the gist of it. But I read so slowly, I haven't finished it or anything. So I was definitely very excited that it has finally gotten an English translation and localization. I don't say this lightly. This is a fantastic manga. Top tier. Not just because of the art, but because of what kind of a story it tells. We start in post World War II era, and we start with an American comic book from the 50s that follows, you know, it's a talking animal world, and this character Billy Bat is a detective, and his story right away is like really interesting. But we ultimately come to find out that we're following the artist and writer of it, a guy named Kevin Yamagata. And he lives in Los Angeles and makes comic books in the 50s until he finds out that maybe he's accidentally plagiarized his character design. He comes across a cop who was stationed in Japan during the war, and he's like, "I've seen this character before. I've seen it in Japan." And Kevin's like, "Wait, what?" So it begins this weird conspiracy type of story where Kevin decides to go to Japan, where he briefly worked as an interpreter with the army. So he has been there, and he's trying to find out, like, you know, like, did I accidentally plagiarize something? Because I'm not okay with that. And there's personal reasons for that, where his father had basically had some stuff stolen from him, and he just really ingrained in Kevin, like, you know, don't take what isn't yours. It was really important to him. Billy Bat always catches my eye at Mandarake because I think it's Batman. I guess this is a sign I need to check it out finally, being it's in English now. It's special, folks. By the way, look at this gorgeous drawing, illustration, 1949 Tokyo. Specifically, this is Ginza. And I'll zoom in a little. Well, it's hard with... I'll try to zoom in. Hold on. There, that's a little better. If you're ever in Ginza, this building right here is now known as Seiko House. Seiko, the watch company. They've got a big clock. It's not the most descriptive building. It's you know, fairly innocuous. But it's got an interesting bit of history. You may have seen it actually in Godzilla -1, if you watched that movie. Ginza was firebombed all to hell during the war, and this whole area was just demolished. For some reason, just pure luck, Seiko House survived. So it's got quite a long history. It's been there, over 100 years now. So yeah, it's not like that is a super important plot point. I just wanted to say it's a nice illustration. It's a really interesting bit of Japanese history. If you ever get a chance to walk around Ginza, you may want to walk by Seiko House, take a picture, because it's just an interesting bit of history that it survived where all the other buildings were demolished. One of the reasons I like Naoki Urasawa is he definitely does draw, you know, a pretty cartoony character, right? Like, it's pretty simplified, but all the characters look different from one another. They're very easy to identify. They're very expressive. And he doesn't draw them that way because that's all he can do. He can draw very realistic backgrounds. And sometimes he'll take more time on somebody to like just show some sort of subtle expression or subtle character design. Great art. And the story, you know, like Kevin comes across these sort of drawings that people are that look very similar to his character, Billy Bat. And there's even a small cult that prays to it. Well, he digs into it. This is just the premise of the book, so I'm not really spoiling anything because this goes quite a few volumes. But there's a potential like murder, and like Kevin wonders if he's responsible for it. But it seems like people are getting influenced by this character, whatever it is. And he finds a man that's drawn it, and he says that there are two versions of it out there. There's a white version and a black version. The good one or the bad one. This guy's becoming a manga artist, moving over from, what's it called one more time? Kamishibai. Kamishibai is a really interesting storytelling that's sort of the precursor to comic books in Japan, where people would draw cards instead of panels. You draw like cards. And you've got this little sort of wooden stage, almost smaller than what you'd use for puppets, but, you know, like a little stage. And people would like go around town and put on a show where you're the narrator and you're explaining and doing the voices for a scene. But instead of puppets, you're using illustrations. And they'd swap the illustrations out in the stage setting. And that's called Kamishibai. I might be slightly mispronouncing it, but Kamishibai, I think, would make for a really interesting experience at a comic convention at some point. If somebody wanted to create like a new story and present it that way, was like a really good storyteller, person to person, doing voices and stuff. Anyway, this guy was a Kamishibai artist and becomes a manga artist. And he's like, I've got to become the best because I'm going to be going up against this guy, Osamu Tezuka, that looks like he's going to, you know, take the world by storm. A lot of interesting ideas, but like there's something very creepy about this idea that there are these drawings of this bat, and there's a white one and a black one, and they might influence people to do things. So I'm just sort of laying the groundwork. It's about so many things. You know, you get a murder mystery. You get like the political intrigue of a country recovering from a war under American control now. You get sort of the late golden era of comic books and the golden age of manga. And you get to like sort of see behind the scenes some of this stuff. Kamishibai. I might do that. That would be it would probably be a small episode, but maybe I'll do that. Anyway, I'm talking about a lot of different aspects. You can tell for yourself if you like this artwork or if you don't. But I love it. I think it's very expressive. I think it reads very well. And I think as a writer, just Naoki Urasawa is incredible. To be fair, he does collaborate on this one with Takashi Nagasaki. Now, Takashi Nagasaki is also a really important name in Japanese manga. Started as an editor, worked on books like Golgo 13 with Takeo Saito, but slowly found that he was more interested in sort of co-writing with his people than just being an editor. And has worked with Naoki Urasawa on some other great titles. Really good writer. Worked on Master Keaton and Pluto, I believe. But anyway, there's something special when they work together. Maybe he did 20th Century Boys too. I got to double check. But anyway, super, super strong recommendation, folks. This is an incredible, incredible book. Those are all the ones that I had, like, you know, a deep dive review on. I'll just say that other things I read this week, I really enjoyed Lucky Devils. Issue 8 of, I believe, 9. Really cool story of, if you ever think you have a devil on your shoulder, he's sort of pushing you to do bad things. That's what this is about. Great single issue story of Mr. Fantastic and Johnny Storm fighting off an alien invasion in ancient France. My store gave me a copy of this for free. Apparently, DC reissued Absolute Batman 20 because issue 20 had all those spine ticks originally. I've heard that their reprint also generally had problems, but mine didn't. And anyway, they just gave me that for free because they said that DC sent them an equal number of copies that they ordered. And so if you had it on a, what do you call it? Your pull list, you just got one. I'll take a free comic. Thanks. Second print. Go-Go 13 is interesting. If you ever get time, there is a sort of interesting live action version of it starring Sonny Chiba, the Street Fighter. It's a Hong Kong action movie. I got a copy. I found my Jaws manga. I got a copy of the Jaws manga here, folks. And I'm not going to review this right now, but I thought I'd just give you a glimpse at what it is. This is a very hard to find comic book because, and I'm going to make an episode about this in July, but this says Herald Books. Okay. And Herald Books was not really a manga publisher like Shueisha or somebody like that. What they were is they imported movies. So sometimes to promote the movie, they would do something special like this. And in 1975, they imported Jaws to Japan and they commissioned a manga adaptation of it. And, they didn't have lots of reference. So while the story is the same, it's also not going to look literally the same because the person couldn't, see stills all the time and stuff like that. But it's a really interesting literal adaptation. It's how many pages? It's a good amount. It's the actual story is about just over a notch over 100 pages. My other copy, this is my second copy. My other copy is in better shape, but this is not bad. And then it does have some stuff on the back, just trying to hype the movie up, telling you about what the movie is. And yeah, I haven't read all that yet, but I'm going to make an episode on my show that compares and contrasts 1970s shark horror comics from Japan, the UK, and the US. And so I was really glad that I finally found this. If you've seen Jaws, probably a lot of you have, you can recognize what sort of scenes are being depicted. It's a nice looking manga. I'll tell you more about the artists and the making of in my actual episode. But I thought I'd just give you guys a glimpse. I was really happy to have found this. And since this is my second copy, I do eventually plan to auction this off, but I've just to set somewhat reasonable expectations. I've had a lot of people already message me, strangers, on social media with some pretty high offers. So it's a really hard to find book, but it becomes a little easier if you can read Japanese. And I just am always looking for certain books. I came really close to getting, for instance, the Moon Knight manga from the 70s recently, but I got outbid at the last moment. But I bet I could find it again. I'm excited to share that with you. Another really cool book I got recently is a protest comic. This is published by Cosmic Lion. They're a great indie publisher. Look, they got Bill Sienkiewicz to do the cover. But you can order this on Cosmic Lion. It's just full of pinups and art protesting, ICE and government cruelty and stuff like that. All sorts of different artists. There's a few really great artists that you'll know. You'll be introduced to some new ones. Look, Peter Cooper. That's a pretty famous name. So yeah, this is put together by Tony Wolfe, who is an artist and an actor. He appeared in an episode of my show as Steve Ditko once, on my episode about, like, how Marvel artists felt about the Marvel system. But I do recognize this. Great cover by Bill Sienkiewicz. Really, really cool. Oh, Cosmic Lion's incredible. I would love to score that Jaws book. I'll be in Japan in August, so maybe. I will say that I got my first copy when I was in Japan. This one I got online. But when I say it's rare, I really do mean that. Like, I've been to a lot of mandarakes and a lot of book offs. In other words, a lot of like used manga stores, and I never saw it in any of those. I got the first one through a friend that lives in Japan, who had another friend that was selling it, and then I got the new one just on a Japanese auction site. I mean, kaiju really just means monster, so you could call it a kaiju, I suppose. Yeah. I haven't really looked at this, but Dave, West Coast Avengers, was in Japan really not that long ago and picked up a bunch of stuff, and I got this on one of his live claim sales. This is a anniversary Fist of the North Star book. Oh, you know what? It's really taped up. It's going to take me a minute to get this up. Weird question. What are your top 3 comics that take place on a subway? Boy, I appreciate the super chat, so I'll give it some thought. But off the top of my head, I'm slightly stumped. My mind goes a little to Batman, but what other... A subway or metro? Ay, that's a tough one. I don't know. What a... A subway or a metro? You've stumped me here. I don't know. I'd have to like give it some thought, but I definitely like my mind goes to Frank Miller on Daredevil and Batman. A Spider-Man Mark Waid story. Little Nemo gets chased by a train. Geez, I'd love to answer you since you gave the super chat, but I don't know off the top of my head. Wow. Fist of the North Star is not a realistic or deep comic. It's very over the top. But this artwork by Boronson is really dynamic and notable. Wow. It's got articles about the creators. Oh, that's so cool. Harada and Boronson worked on this together. The heck? They're ads for brushes, but also a bullet and a knife. Kankoyo Nano Tsui Kyo wa. I have no idea what that means. Very cool. Well, this will be fun to look through. Thanks, Dave. Big fan of Fist of the North Star. It's very influential, but it was also inspired by other pretty badass, over-the-top stuff like, I don't know, Devilman, Violence Jack, stuff like that. Let me be careful here. Let me draw for a little bit. We're going to draw. And people can talk about what they ate tonight. And then I will talk about some other topics that I've got in mind. I'm just doing a few quick things with a brush pen here, and then I'm going to pivot to using some technical pens. But has anybody else been drawing lately? I feel like I haven't had a whole lot of time to do even much doodling other than on this show. It's frustrating because I love drawing. It's very relaxing and soothing for me to do drawing. Let's see. I'm drawing. Fist of the North Star was drawn with knife dipped in ink. I'd believe that. I recorded with the king of drawing pooping dogs today. That would be Mr. Jeff Darrow. I think I'm more of a writer too, ultimately, but I do like drawing. Drawing right now, inking issue 2 of my comic. Very impressive. Couple of sketch covers to stock up for Montreal Comic-Con. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. I don't know if I'm good or not, but I like drawing. Oh, very cool. I'm not much of a musician at all. My wife is. I can't even draw a bath. You guys are great. Let's see. What was I just about to say? Oh, I know. I'll talk about some of the stuff I've seen lately. I went out to see Masters of the Universe, and short version, I actually really liked it. It isn't a spectacular film or anything, but it's a very fun film. I come at that from a point of view of I was not into He-Man stuff really as a kid. I just I don't know. I didn't have any of the toys and didn't watch the cartoon a whole lot. A little bit. As a kid, you kind of watched any cartoon you could get, but a little bit, but not a lot. But I decided to go to this because it looked kind of fun and goofy and weird. And I'll be honest, I had a great time with my friends. I went with a couple friends, and I laughed a lot. It does have, I guess, what you'd sort of call the Marvel style of humor, but it worked for me. The jokes, I don't want to give them away, but it worked for me. I had a really good time, and yeah, I don't know exactly how well it'll end up doing, but at the end of the day, I don't really care about those numbers anymore. I just all I care about is, if it came out, do I enjoy it? And I did. I would recommend it. I'm not much of a He-Man expert, but I was enough to recognize a bunch of the references. And look, if you get annoyed by things like member berries, probably not the movie for you. But it knows exactly what it is. Let me put it that way. Masters of the Universe knows exactly what it is and kind of leans into how weird it is, which I thought was really, really fun. Saw it on the weekend. It's not a bad film. It's a dumb film, a little sloppy at times, but it's silly and fun. Plenty of fun. I would say more like when they try to get serious, felt maybe a little cliche, but most of the actors knew exactly what kind of a movie they were doing. Like Alison Brie as Evelyn was fantastic. Idris Elba as Man-at-Arms actually has a pretty good character arc. The lady that plays Tilo, gorgeous. What's her name? I think she was on the Archie show. Yeah, somebody said, is it better than Mortal Kombat 2? I would say yeah. I had fun at Mortal Kombat 2. I would say I like this more than Mortal Kombat 2. And again, just didn't grow up a fan of He-Man, but I thought it was a blast. It feels like Jack Kirby on acid, like the kind of crazy weirdo ideas it has. Bumblebee was the only live-action Transformers film that I liked. The rest were like interesting to annoying, but that was the only one I liked. Travis Knight, not bad, not a bad. He also did Kubo and the Two Strings, so he's a pretty good director. His father's Phil Knight, the creator of Nike. So you know he comes from money, but he's definitely doing his own thing. Anyway, I do recommend it. If you're on the fence or like wondering about it or anything, you'll probably have a pretty darn good time, folks. It's a weird movie, but it's really funny. It's really funny. They probably spent way too much making it, but that's all to our advantage in terms of how it looks. The world of Eternia is vibrant, interesting, and yeah, it's huge. I'll say this too. I hate Jared Leto. I absolutely loved Skeletor. He's unrecognizable in there. Like, it doesn't sound or look anything like him. I mean, they probably just took his voice and put it through like some sort of weird filters. But Skeletor's hilarious. Skeletor is very entertaining. So anyway, I guess that's my review. Is I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. I really liked it. Is there anything else? I didn't really see anything else. I haven't had time. Oh, I think I work. I don't know if I'll get to. I have a friend that saw a preview of it, and he said it's pretty good action. Not a deep story, but good. I have gone through like the manga that I read this week. Yeah. I did not know that. That's interesting. I didn't enjoy Tron Ares at all. I just didn't like it. I wanted to, but I didn't like it at all. Sorry. Yeah, I know. You know, I was like, I like Fight Club. He's got a tiny role in that, but he doesn't really speak much as far as Jared Leto movies. And Dallas Buyers Club, I was like, that was pretty good, actually. That was pretty good. But everything else he's been in I didn't really care. Yeah, the soundtrack was good. I agree with you there. The soundtrack was good. Yeah, Trent Reznor did a great job on that. I guess I didn't really see anything else, but I'll just like update you real quick on like where I'm at on comic tropes. So I put out an episode yesterday that was more of a story time episode because I'm focused on editing a big episode about a Batman artist that I really like. And I couldn't get it done in time for this weekend, but I really want to see if I can try to put something out every Sunday morning and see if that helps the algorithm. It's something I want to try. So that's what I decided to do, is put out a like a story time where I talk about doing indie comics and how that built into an opportunity where I illustrated a book that got nominated for an Eisner. So that's a little bit of a feather in my cap as like, you know, somebody that's not a full-time professional artist. I'm proud of that. You know, I feel like that was a pretty good accomplishment. And so I told that story. And if people respond to that, I've got some other stories I could always talk about, you know, the stuff that I did with Robert Kirkman, or, you know, before doing, you know, comic book stuff, like maybe some of the other stuff that I did in entertainment and stuff, you know, like how I was friends with, and did a show with Ken Jeong back in the day, things like that. I don't know. So I might do some like that, or maybe just do some small episodes that are about funny Golden Age comics here and there, just so that I can keep it coming out weekly. I'll try. I don't know if I'm going to try. That's my current goal, is that I'm going to try to put out like weekly content. And it might be every other week that I put out more of, you know, the fully edited deep dive episodes looking at an artist, a writer, or a piece of history. I feel like I've gotten to the point where I can't quite generate that on a weekly basis with my day job, but I can get close. And so maybe, just in between, do sort of a smaller episode, but put something out that's about comic books still. We'll see. Maybe I just need better thumbnails and titles. Maybe I need to delete some of the unlisted episodes that are not friendly for all viewers. I don't know. I'm trying some new things to see how the algorithm responds. There's not a lot of clarity over how that works right now. But I'll get there. What else do I have to say about the show, or what else is going on there? I don't know. Got to think about that a little bit. I mean, I guess I liked it. I've never felt the need to watch it again because it's so depressing. Have you ever done videos on the comics you've worked on? Well, that's more just like the kind of thing I was talking about. Yes, in terms of I've done them as a story time. Like I talked about the time I had an image pitch that got accepted, but we were too slow. So eventually it sort of got dropped. And that was like, a missed opportunity. And I talk about how somebody could potentially avoid that kind of a mistake. And in this latest story time, I talked about how you can create some of your own opportunities, creating a group of like-minded individuals, and how I helped build a community of artists that we did a bunch of self-published stuff. So yeah, like there's a couple things like that I could do and have done. Let me let's see. I know, but you know what? Like, even if I did one or two episodes where I was like talking about just nothing but controversial stuff, or like, really trashing a comic, I'd get burned out. Like I could only do one or two of those, and then that's all I've got in me. I don't have it in me to constantly sort of get outraged by stuff. Which is, like what the site wants, and I understand that, but there are other ways to slowly build an audience and a community. I don't know if you guys saw this, but this week Mr. Beast said if he had to create another channel that he could, without any of his money or his connections, he could easily get, I don't know if he said 10 million or 20 million subscribers, but he said like he could get one of those. I think he said 20 million subscribers within 6 months. And I was like, no, you can't. No, you can't. You are deluding yourself because you've had so much success that you think it's all you as compared to luck and what you've slowly built out. That is not going to work for you again. Like if you were being honest, like, no, you would definitely have to like tell people or use money to hype videos and stuff. It's it's not that easy, or people would do it all the time, create like second channels like that. There was a guy called Ludwig that said that he could do something like that. And eventually he had to sort of start hinting to his audience like, oh, nobody's finding my secret channel. Oh, I wonder if you'll find my secret channel. And, eventually they did. But it's like, well, yeah, you had to use your main channel to get that. So rage bait is boring. Hey, while I've been doing this, Chrissy has been online doing her end of semester presentation for one of her class. And she says that she got 100%. I'm so proud of you. I'm not that surprised, love. You've been getting fantastic, perfect grades since you've been gone back to college. So I'm not surprised, but I am super proud of you and happy. I think you said you have 2 semesters after this and you'll get your degree. Is that right? But anyway, so that's, I'm working on a couple Batman artists. for the month of June, as well as getting up and running to do an episode about shark comics, like what I was just showing you guys. And I've tasked my sister with getting me some footage from the town we grew up in, because we did grow up on a beach town in Massachusetts. So, you grew up with people hunting sharks during the season, or certainly like there were warnings of, maybe bluefin, maybe sharks, things like that. You did grow up with it, as well as Jaws being set in Massachusetts. So I grew up thinking about that stuff, and I'm going to have her get me some footage of the town we grew up in. Oh yeah, how does Mr. Beast smile? He's always got sort of a... He's got his eyes half closed, like he's dead. He's like a scarecrow. That would be just fine. Ha ha ha. What's that an impression of? Here's my impression again. This is from a movie. That would be just fine. Ha ha ha. Does anyone remember what movie that's from? Stick your top lip up over your gums. Well, now I've got a big mustache, so you can't really see it. Oh, that's the Mr. Beast smile? I don't know. That was an impression of Darkman. We all remember Darkman, right? Liam Neeson, Sam Raimi. It's a good movie. Basically a superhero movie. Sort of like The Shadow or something like that, but with a more modern tell. Yeah. At one point, he's practicing doing a voice impression, because he can make masks to look like anybody, but he has to practice, and he's listening to the bad guy, like a tape recording, and he just keeps going, that would be just fine. He's missing his lips, so that's what he looks like. Yep, Larry Drake was the villain. What was his name in that? Durant? Something like that. You're not missing anything. You're not missing anything. Look, he had a cool idea. The idea of just it's going to constantly be like a game show where you're giving away money and stuff like that. But yeah, anyone with the resources could have done that. He happened to basically be the first, and he slowly built it out to be more and more popular. I'll give him credit for coming up with that much, but the idea that he could do it from scratch with no help and no promo or anything, and again, get 20 million subscribers in 6 months, no, you can't. Bullshit. I know a bunch of dials that I could turn to make my channel more popular. But it would all be short term in the sense that I would get burned out making that kind of a show. That's all. It might help to do more mainstream topics, and they don't necessarily need to be negative. Yeah, I agree. And I think I do a certain amount of those, and that brings in people. And then they're like, oh, interesting. He's now talking about an old comic that I haven't heard about, or an artist that, I sort of remember, but not 100%. When you're trying to sort of explain some of this stuff to people that haven't necessarily encountered it before, it's always a little bit of an uphill battle, because I'm not quite teaching, but I'm certainly explaining a bunch of stuff, whereas a lot of stuff that people like to watch on YouTube is way more passive. People enjoy They enjoy deep dives. They definitely enjoy documentary type stuff and news, but they also enjoy, real relaxed commentary and stuff just getting explained, and that's okay. but that is, if I wanted to just explain every horror movie and just lay it out for you, that'd be a show. That'd be a channel. Anyway. Oh, but I know what I should promote. Our editor, producer, Jamie on Trash Movie Bonanza had a super busy several days, but I'm pretty sure at some point tomorrow he should be able to be done with our episode about the 1987 Masters of the Universe movie. I would have loved to have gotten it out before this new movie came out, but it's okay because that's a pretty small audience that Jim and I have. But I think you guys will like it. I think it's one of the funnier, more in-depth episodes we've ever done. Like a weird deep dive into not just the movie, but the history of He-Man, the history of Canon films going out of business and stuff like that. I think we've got a really funny, cool one for you coming up. One of our best. So I'm really excited. That'll either come out like tomorrow or the next day, I think. My cameo in the Drake video. Is that like did I do a vocal thing, I think? Right? I can't remember. Sometimes I help these people, but I don't remember when it's coming out. So, yeah. I would love to see a deep dive retrospective on Marvel's Ultimate Universe this second time around after Ultimate Endgame is finally over. Maybe, yeah, that might be an interesting thing to do once there's been a little more time passed. So we'll see. We'll see. I could have, but like I say, I just didn't grow up that big a fan of He-Man. So I wouldn't really be coming at it like from a point of view of pure love and excitement and stuff. So sometimes I will do stuff that I don't like, but mostly there's a lot of artists that I love that I want to talk about. So we'll see. Trying to think if there's any other movies that are coming up soon that I'm excited for. I mean, I want to see the Spider-Man movie and the Supergirl movie, but what comes out this week? I can't remember. Started from the bottom, now I'm here. Can you trick Linkara into reciting Roz Kirby in Jack Kirby's voice again? Well, to be fair, I didn't really trick him. I pretended to trick him. That was fun to collaborate with him. I collaborate with... There's a bunch of people that I would enjoy collaborating with, and I'd love to collaborate with some new folks. I really respect. Who does like good just like modern reviews and interviews that I've come across recently? BJ Kicks. I like his content. I think that's pretty cool. I'm always down for collaborating with people that I have before, like West Coast Avengers, Comic Drake, Linkara, Godzilla Mendoza, Owen likes comics. I'm always down for those, but I'd love to collaborate with some new people. I've come close a few times with Sasha, but timing never worked. Timing is never lined up right. Is Toy Story 5 that soon? The Odyssey I'm very excited for. I don't know if I have cred or not. I have been doing it a long time, though. It snuck up on me. It doesn't feel to me like I've been doing it for 10 years. I'll say that because I'm having a good time, and there's so many new things that I can always come across to discuss. So I've never really gotten bored or run out of ideas or anything like that. So yeah, I've got a lot more that I want to do with the channel. And I want to try to find ways to tell it in new ways. That's the trick. but like I want to try to keep it fresh if I can think of new ways to do things. I'm always thinking about it. Somebody just said Disclosure Day, and I forgot about that. But when was the last time Spielberg directed a movie? Has it been since Lincoln? I can't. He's got to have done something since Lincoln. Oh, was Indiana Jones 4 after Lincoln? What's he done? Well, thank you for watching that. Yeah, I guess that is a while. That is a while. Oh, right. You know what? I never caught Fabelmans, and I wanted to because I remember he had David Lynch play a role as Howard Hawks or something, I think. I forgot about West Side Story. That was a big success. You're right. He has kept busy. I just haven't seen some of the newest things. But you know what? Spielberg has a reputation for doing some exceptional alien movies, right? I mean, E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, they're both pretty fantastic, arguably classics. So, he's got a high bar to pass there or live up to with Disclosure Day. And I feel like he'd take that pretty seriously. He has his pick of, I guess he also did War of the Worlds, but that was decent. Yeah, I like Spielberg. Spielberg's a good director. People say sometimes that he's just a crowd pleaser, but I do think he's deeper than that. I think that a few of his movies have almost perfect construction. I definitely think Jaws and Raiders of the Lost Ark have basically perfect construction. Who's a director that you feel like has not made a bad movie? It doesn't mean that you think every single one is perfect, but hasn't made a bad movie. I don't think Quentin Tarantino has ever made a bad movie. I don't think I'd even argue that. I think even if I don't love them all, I don't know that. Well, no, Spielberg did make that one 1946 or something. That was kind of bad. David Fincher, yeah, he hasn't made a bad movie. That's true. His movies are really interesting. I like Oz Perkins stuff, but I'm not quite at the point where I've loved it. He's so close. Christopher Nolan, the only one is I have a hard time getting behind Tenet, but every other movie he's made I've absolutely loved. George Miller's a good one. That's a good one. Guillermo del Toro. Yeah. Well, a bunch of people saying Nolan, and I respect that a lot, but I just couldn't really get into Tenet, and I wanted to. Denis Villeneuve. Yep. Oh, interesting. Terry Gilliam. Right on. Yeah. Man, just for Brazil and 12 Monkeys. Boy, that's a good one. That's a good book. Wait, I don't think I know Richard Stanley. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think, but I don't think I know Richard Stanley. Tim Burton. Has Tim Burton made a bad movie? I don't know. I haven't seen some of his stuff like Dumbo, Didn't he do Dumbo? I'm like, I don't know. Brad Bird. Very good choice. Yeah, Brad Bird. You're right. Well, wait a minute. Tomorrowland? I don't know. Is that a bad movie? It's not a great movie. It's not a great movie. Scorsese, I'd put up there. I don't think Scorsese's made a bad movie. I'm sort of coming at it like the point of view that you should, all your movies are at least pretty good. Wes Anderson. Yeah, I never saw his Wonka movie. That didn't look too appealing. Ang Lee is a nice choice. You know, it's fun for me to think about this because I do feel like we've gotten to the point where the auteur, the director as the auteur, has greatly diminished. I think that there still are a few that write and direct their own stuff, and they have a very definitive take and style. But yeah. Well, that's just like your opinion, man. Yeah, I would say that, like, while I love a lot of Burton's movies, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Batman, Edward Scissorhands, a million others. Oh, what was that one about the painting? Big Eyes? That was really good. Robert Eggers I like a lot. Yeah, I don't think he's made a bad movie. That's fair. Have the Coen brothers made a bad movie? I'd sort of say that yes, unfortunately. Because didn't they do Crime Story? Interesting, but that's a mess. That's a bad movie. The Coen brothers, like, if you even made one, I'm saying, kind of like, if you've made one that are kind of bad, it takes you out. I think Paul Thomas Anderson is a fair argument, even if you don't love everything. Yeah. Cronenberg, I'd probably be able to get behind too. Yeah. It is too bad seeing somebody like Scorsese be okay with AI, because I think he is a pretty fantastic director. Guy Ritchie has made a couple like that were clunkers. That movie Arthur, people did not like. I'd have to like give some thought to like oh really? I mean, look, all of these directors were each going to like probably have a little bit of a different opinion. I did like Nosferatu. So yeah, Eggers hasn't done bad by my count yet, but that's fair. Crime Wave, right? No, was that Sam Raimi? Maybe it was. You know what? I take it back. I think that was Sam Raimi. I think the Coen brothers might have produced it or something. So maybe the Coen brothers haven't necessarily made a bad movie. Nah, Matthew Vaughn's made some clunkers. What was that most recent one he did? Argyle? Mm-mm. Top three Subway movies is easier because you've got The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, the original, with Robert Shaw and Walter Matthau. Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3 is incredible. If we just count a movie with a great subway scene, Spider-Man 2. Come on. And then there's some interesting like schlocky 80s horror movies that take place in like subways and stuff like that. Yeah, I got to think about that one. Tony Scott. Got to think about it because he's close to sort of like schlock sometimes. He's made a lot of great ones. He's made a few that are kind of like close. I'd have to think about that. Jim, always good to see you, buddy. Our boy Jag Mundra, Hack-O-Lantern, never made a bad flick. Everybody gotta have a little bit of fun on Halloween. Joe D'Amato. Speed has a great subway scene. It's a little goofy at the very end, but it's good. Oh, the original TMNT had subway scenes. Midnight Meat Train. That's one that I was thinking of. And then what's the other one? Like it's an early Jamie. What's her name from Halloween and Freaky Friday and stuff like that. I can't remember. Your cousin caught Yagmundra the other week. I got a little Yagmundra. I'm very happy that Jim introduced me to Hack-O-Lantern. What a silly movie. What a silly movie. But I'm really excited to. Was it Terror Train with Jamie Lee Curtis? Thank you. That's kind of a fun subway movie. There's also one that just has like a ton of monsters, like, but there's like a cyborg ninja and stuff like that. Oh, okay. So if we're talking best movies on a subway or metro, I think I agree. Like, we've got Taking of Pelham 123, you got Train to Busan. Do train movies count? Because if train movies count, that does open it up. That does open it up. There are a bunch of train. I was really trying to think of subway, metro as compared to like long distance trains, but still, Train to Busan does have some subway stuff. Well, thanks for the support. Go Knicks. Well, are they ahead? Money Train? Polar Express, Bullet Train. All train movies count? Okay, hold on then. Yeah, wait a minute. Murder on the Orient Express. What's the one with hold on. I'm thinking of one from like the early 80s, and I'm trying to remember the actors in it. They're in prison and they escape onto a train, like they hijack a train. Hey, not for nothing. Back to the Future Part 3. Not for nothing. That was Snakes on a Plane. How dare you? Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. I would like to see what Joe Bob Briggs had to say. Yeah, Train to Busan, Taking of Pelham 123. I'm aware of Nonstop. I saw some of it at work on like during a lunch break. Silver Streak. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do like Pryor and Wilder together for just about anything. Buster Keaton's The General. Who's I got to go through like a series of things that people have been in. Who was the bad guy in the first Mission Impossible and Anaconda? Jon Voight. Okay, Jon Voight, and the other one was who's the actress in Pretty Woman? Julia Roberts. Her brother is Eric Roberts. Okay, Eric Roberts and Jon Voight. They did a train movie. What was that movie? That's a good one. Oh, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Maybe those three. Taking of Pelham 123, Train to Busan, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Doesn't have a lot of train stuff. You're right. Under Siege 2 was a train movie, but no, I'm not choosing that one. Was it Midnight Express? Is that the one I'm thinking of? I mean, it might be. No, that's not the one I'm thinking of. The one I'm thinking of is like, yeah, it's got Jon Voight and it's got Eric Roberts, and I think it was even the first movie with Danny Trejo. Sliding. Oh yeah, Runaway Train. That's it. Runaway Train is good. Oh, Snowpiercer, which is a comic book movie. Ooh, Snowpiercer's damned good. Ooh. Oh, I was right. Yeah, Runaway Train was Trejo's first movie. You know what? Runaway Train is good, but it definitely gets bumped. Yeah, that's Snowpiercer. I think Snowpiercer gets into my top 3. I think my 3 would be Train to Busan, Snowpiercer, and Taking of Pelham 123. I think that those are the 3 that I would choose. Not easy. Source Code? Interesting movie. Interesting movie. Never saw Thomas the Tank Engine. I'm a little too old. This was definitely not specifically about comics. We went on an interesting tangent, but that was kind of fun. That was really fun. Unstoppable. That's the one I saw a bunch in during a break. Yeah. Runaway Train is good, but I think that Snowpiercer bumps it off my personal top 3 list. That's fun to try to like reason out. I like movies a lot. I love comics. Movies are a close second. I'm not going there. Not even saying. I'm not touching that. Nia DaCosta doesn't have a bad movie. She's only done 3, right? And some people would argue that, obviously, but I don't think I would. She did Candyman. She did The Marvels. And what else? She did like one other. How to Train Your Dragon. I like it. Galaxy Express. An anime, but not a bad choice. Not a bad choice. Bullet Train was fun, but dumb. Here's my list of top 10 Steven Seagal movies. The one where he dies that actually stars who? It's got John Leguizamo and the guy that was Kurt Russell. What movie is that? That's his best movie. That he's barely in. I'll give it to Under Siege. Under Siege was watchable thanks to Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey. I love that choice. North by Northwest. I love that choice. Let's see. Hold on. What else? Is there any other Steven Seagal movie that I could watch all the way through? Even his early ones, I do not like. He was the bad guy in one of those Danny Trejo Machete movies. So I'll say he's got 3 that are watchable. I bet you that he's got more than 3 movies where he has a fight scene literally sitting down the whole time. I would be willing to bet that there are at least 4 Steven Seagal movies where he has a fight scene while sitting in a chair or a booth or something like that. I bet you anything there's at least 4. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I think so. Out for Justice, I liked at the time, but I couldn't anymore. Hitchcock did Strangers on a Train. Yeah. Steven Seagal running, like he just flaps his arms like this. Oh, it's such a weird run. This reminds me of the night that like I just did impressions of U.S. presidents, or the night that I like tried to list all the countries in the planet. Demon Slayer Mugen Train. Yes. Oh man. Dude, Steven Seagal drives me nuts. I hate him. I legit think he's a horrible person. Horrible. Tom Cruise has one of the I think he's got one of the best looking runs on film. He looks like he's given it his all. I don't know if he's the fastest or anything, but I think he's one of the people that looks the best when he's running. Yeah, Steven Seagal, terrible actor, terrible person. Just the worst. The worst. Boy, I am really tempted to put together a compilation of his fight scenes sitting down in a chair, because I don't know for sure how many there are, but I bet that there's at least 4. He's very lazy. Wikipedia has a movie set on trains page. Oh, that would have made this all too easy. That would have made this too easy. Cruise has a good run. He really does. Yeah. I mean, it's not just the Mission Impossible movies. Now that I'm thinking of it, War of the Worlds, he's got a great running scene. If he's running, he just feels like it feels authentic. I remember both those nights, and you nailed it with countries. Remember polls? Yes, polls naming as many Marvel or DC characters as we could. That was fun. That was really fun. That was when I'd pull up that website Jetpunk, and we'd just do like comic book related quizzes. I really enjoyed that. Probably would not interest everybody, but I liked it. Did he run in Jerry Maguire? Or are you saying that like it has a great running scene? Because Cuba Gooding Jr. runs in it. I don't remember. He might. Well, I'm excited to show you guys the review Jim Maffood and I did on Masters of the Universe from '87. I'm also really excited to get you this latest episode about a really cool 90s artist that I think people don't talk about enough. It's really, really cool. Yeah, one of his best. He did a bunch of good runs in the different Mission Impossible movies. I mean, was the Brad Bird one the one where he runs away from the Kremlin exploding? That was cool. I forget which one he ran, and he in real life broke his ankle because he jumped between buildings, but that was a cool run. And Mission Impossible 3 on the bridge where he's running and the missile hits a car and he gets yanked or by the force of the wave into a car. That looks amazing. That looks so good. That's a good stunt. That's a really good stunt. One of the best, this would take us down a whole path that we probably don't have time for, but we should talk about best real life stunts in a movie. And maybe even narrow it down to stunts where we know the actor themselves did part of it, at least, if not all of it. Jackie Chan would get a lot of that stuff because he's done some really amazing stunts. Knicks are behind, but I waited my whole life for this. Tell my students the 90s were rough. Some guy named Michael Jordan kept ruining it. You've got some time. Even if you don't win tonight, you've got some time. You're up 2 already. Minority Report's cool. Look, I don't necessarily like Tom Cruise as a person, but he's made a lot of entertaining movies. He's really made a lot. But for stunts, John Wick, maybe. Bruce Campbell in Maniac Cop. Oh, man, that's a great argument. My Name is Kingdom says any of the wrestling that Mickey Rourke did himself in The Wrestler. That's a good point. Probably his last movie that I liked. He's a weirdo. I wouldn't quite call that a stunt, but that is an amazing thing that was... Oh, right. People are pointing out Buster Keaton. Yeah, all the amazing stunts he did. Yeah. I think if we're talking about actors who've also done lots of cool stunts, I think you'd have to start with Buster Keaton. And I honestly think Jackie Chan would be number 2. And then maybe Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise has done a lot of crazy stunts, even in just those Mission Impossible movies. Those are 3 people that have done some really good stunts for not being stuntmen. Thank you for the support. That's really amazing. Oh, that's a fun one. I can't wait to see the next Jackass movie. Yeah. Oh, man, that's true. All the stunts on Jackass, those are real stunts. The time Steve-O got strapped into the porta potty on the slingshot. I mean, that's a classic. Or when they were all in that gigantic shopping cart going down the hill with the explosions. So good. Dude, beyond breaking his ankle a couple times. I mean, in Armor of the Gods 2? Yeah, Armor of the Gods 2. Jackie jumped from a wall to a tree and the branch broke and he fell on his head and got a hole in it. And that was a really bad one. I think he was even put into a medically induced coma for a little while. That was his worst injury by far. That was his worst. What? Definitely Seagal is way lazier than Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes is in good shape. Wesley Snipes is cool for me. Harold Lloyd. Yeah, another guy that did some crazy stunts. I think I did hear that, especially in the Mummy movies, that Brendan Fraser did some damage. I think to his knees and stuff like that. I think he has some chronic pain and maybe even a concussion from those movies. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right. Jackie Chan didn't just break every bone in his body. He somehow managed to break every bone in his stunt team and directors' bodies too. Harrison Ford has done a bunch of stunts, but not everything. But he has he did get dragged for a while in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He did do some of that stuff where he's getting dragged. So he's done some impressive stuff. Yep, definitely remember. John Woo. Yeah, Harrison Ford is good at crashing planes in real life. No, I haven't seen that. I'll be the first to admit, AI can definitely realize some funny ideas, but it's not worth it to me when you consider the cost, the environmental cost. Or can any of us afford like a SIM card or a graphics card these days? No, because that stuff has all skyrocketed in price because all of the data farms buy it all up. None of us can afford computer stuff these days. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, I think, folks. This was a really fun episode. I know we went on some crazy tangents, but I love doing that stuff. We'll have to do that again next week. But I'm going to wrap it up so that I can get some dinner with Chrissy. I got to think real hard about what that is, because I'll just let you in on a small thing. I definitely stopped paying attention to what I was eating, especially once the house flooded. I felt overwhelmed with all the different stuff going on in my life, and I just started snacking. And last night I checked my blood sugar, and it's terrible. Just absolutely like scary terrible. So I need to take care of myself there. I've gone cold turkey, just like, focused on vegetables and non-red meats. So just trying to like drink more water and eat healthy, but it's a little scary. I am going to meet a specialist tomorrow morning to try to get this under control, because I promise I want to be here and take care of myself, make good shows for you. But I have been absolutely exhausted, and it's because I let my diabetes get out of control. I'm really frustrated with myself. That's my mistake, but just letting you know. But I'm trying to take care of myself, okay? I'm trying to take care of myself. Thanks for listening, folks. Had a great time. You know what kind of marching orders I'm going to give you? Keep reading comics. All right, folks. See you real soon. Share some episodes. Leave some comments on the main channel. Bye.